Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Take a Look. My name is Dave McSporn. Joining me is Felipe Escobar. And today we welcome very, very special guest, Canadian Olympic swimmer Rachel Nicol. Rachel, thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Rachel has competed for Canada on numerous occasions, representing the nation at World Championships, both short course and long course, Commonwealth Games, as high as the Olympics in Rio in 2016, and then many youth games and junior Pan Pacs Youth Olympics when she was younger. So Rachel, we were hoping to speak to you today about your career as a whole, but I was hoping to actually start with something further in the past. You were part of Canada's team at the inaugural Youth Olympics back in 2010, where you actually stood atop the podium in the 50 breaststroke, along with another pair of bronze medals from that event. So I wanted to touch on that to begin with, and how sort of that feeling of success has influenced you moving forward and all that.
Sure. So the Youth Olympics, I guess, was one of the first big major games. Well, definitely the first major games that I went to and major meets that I went to. And then I think the second sort of travel trip that I went on with Team Canada as a junior, and it was I hated traveling. It was the worst thing in the world, and getting ready to leave my family was really hard. And honestly, I probably would say that was one of the biggest obstacles, was just getting ready for the trip and getting prepared for that. I started working with a sports psychologist, or a mental performance consultant, as they're called now, when I was 14. And that was one of the biggest things that we kind of worked on, honestly. It was a little bit weird. And so the traveling was a big obstacle, but once we got there, everything was good. It was a big time change to adjust to, but it was really cool being in the village and being a part of such a small Canadian junior team. Was really nice. There was only 8 of us, and 4 boys and 4 girls, I believe, and it was really quite an honor to be asked to be on that team. And it was super fun because they had the 50 breaststroke, which the Olympics doesn't have, so that was really nice for me. And I really wish that they would bring in the 50 into the Olympics. That'd be great. Listen, that'd be awesome.
It's coming. I think it's coming.
And so we started off with the 50 breaststroke, and I managed to win that one. And that was the first time that I had won any sort of really major competition internationally, for sure. And it was really cool to be part of Team Canada. I don't think I really realized the weight of being at the inaugural games. It was, and I look back at it now and I'm like, that was really cool. But when I was younger, I don't think I really realized that. It was more of all the small things of oh, how am I going to perform, and how is the travel going to go? How is my roommates going to be when I get there? What's the food going to be? All these little small things that kind of, I don't know if everybody who watches a race is all the little things that have to go into that race to make it all come together is what athletes were about, and coaches were about, and management were about. So everything went really, really well, though. And at the time, back that now I focus on the 100 breaststroke. Back then I was more of a 200 focused breaststroker, and I got 4th in that race. And so I think I won a best time, but I was still pretty disappointed because nobody really wants to get 4th. And and then the 100 was good again. It was, I don't think I won a best time, but I was pretty close to a best time, so that was good. And the year before that, I had raced in the illegal laser racer suits that are illegal.
Right, 2009.
And so the time I think my times in the 100 and the 200 were from that suit. And so I didn't end up beating my 100 breaststroke time from when I was 16 until I think I was maybe 20. It was a really long time before I got a best time in that event ever again. So just know that if you don't get a best time in a few months, just think about some people don't get best times in years, so it's okay. It's pretty normal. And it was cool to experience that. And again, it was like all the little things that I was really worried about, and I don't think I really took in the big picture of it all. But it was a really fun trip. It went super, super well, and Canada did really well. We got a bronze medal, and I think it was the 4x100 free.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was me, and then I think two other girls were breaststrokers, and then we had a flyer. So we had like three breaststrokers and a flyer, and nobody swam freestyle, and we got a bronze medal. So we thought that was really cool and pretty funny. But all the girls got along really well too, so that was nice. And being in Singapore is such a beautiful country, and I had never been to Asia before, and so that was a really cool experience as well.
I think it's an interesting point. You'd mentioned the whole like that you didn't really like travel too much back then, and that's something that maybe a lot of people that watch these large games or world events don't consider is someone can be very, very successful at home in their whatever Olympic trials, world trials and everything. And then no one knows per se that, you're not comfortable with travel, especially at a young age there. And then if whatever happens, you came fourth in 200 breast, which is a fantastic result, but you're still disappointed with it. And someone's sitting there going like, what happened? They don't always know. So getting that sort of experience when you're very young, do you think that sort of helped you along the way? How has that sort of shaped your training moving forward, and even in preparation for your first Olympic Games in 2016?
Yeah, I think it was, when I was in my teens, I really didn't like swimming that much. It was really hard. And like I said, I didn't really get best times for a long time and was totally plateaued. And I didn't really like racing. I've always had issues, and probably will, and still do, and will continue to have a bit of issues with believing in myself and my abilities and having confidence. And so at that point in time, I had sort of a string of bad races and not swimming any best times for a long time. And then it just gets hard, right? Because you don't have any encouragement to kind of push you forward. And so at that point in time, I was just, I think, really, I know it sounds weird because I went to the Youth Olympics, but I was really just trying to survive and do my best with each small next thing. And I never have been one when I was younger either. Like, my goal in swimming has always just been just do and how far I can get. And it had never been to get to the Olympics ever in my life. I had the only time that I thought that I could maybe make it to the Olympics was the year before in 2015 when I made my first senior national team. And that was the first time that I kind of thought, oh, maybe there's a chance to be able to do this. But before that, it was more just okay, how am I going to tackle this next meet? How am I going to, it was always smaller steps. And so working with the mental performance consultant really helped with setting smaller goals, and even just day by day, practice by practice, little things to chip away. And so I don't know necessarily that I think it was really good to experience being in a village, being on a team, traveling, all those little things, and kind of getting that under my belt. But what really helped me was actually going to SMU and for university in Texas, and I started swimming yards, which I had never done before, so I didn't have any time. So every time was the best time.
Right.
And
that's interesting.
That made a big difference. And swimming yards was just completely different. It was a whole new atmosphere. I didn't know anybody that I was racing against, which was helpful because that can kind of get in your head too. I'm sure you oh, this guy or that girl, whatever, swims like this. And so it was nice because it was just here you go, try your best. I don't know. And so I would say that it was very much more of a progressive movement, I guess, of working kind of day by day, meet by meet, instead of okay, the Youth Olympics and that was awesome and this big thing. It was more of just of me being a worry of just oh no, what about this and that, and kind of just keeping things under control. So yeah.
You talk about that kind of mentality that you have, not seeing yourself as better for a specific race, and then you see yourself in some races going from first to fourth and then first again. How do you handle kind of that pressure and as an Olympian yourself, that pressure and all that stuff to get yourself ready for each race?
Yeah, so Like, do you mean in terms of like training wise or like at the meet?
Both. It just how
Both.
mentally do you get yourself kind of ready for each race or for every practice?
Sure.
Be at this
Sure.
level.
Yeah. For me anyways, a lot of it rely on like being mentally in a good state of mind. Is relying a lot on good training. It and confidence in my training. I realized that like so I went to SMU, moved back to Lethbridge, and then moved to Calgary, and trained there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And at that point in time, I tore the labrum in my shoulder, and I wasn't performing well in practice, and then not performing well in swim meets, and went to Commonwealth Games and Pan Pacs, and just some awful. and and again, so it was kind of like when I was going into the Youth Olympics, it was like a string of sort of bad races and performances, and then my confidence was kind of low, and then you get there and you have one good race, and that can kind of make the difference. But I would say that just having like, and so my point I guess is that when Rio happened, I thought that, oh, like the next 4 years will be kind of like smooth sailing, and that was definitely not the case. And so yeah, so I had sort of a string of just kind of yeah, like bad training, and not really like because of my shoulder, and I was doing my master's degree, which was a lot of classes, and so it was just a whole kind of slurry of things that didn't end up being a great environment for me. And so I didn't swim well for a long time, and I would really try. Like I had been going to and working with like a psychologist for like 10 years at that point, and still would go to races and not perform well. And so it's hard. It takes a really interesting mix to get a good race, and there's so many components that go into it, and for everybody it's different. And so for me, training is a huge thing, and so that was one of the major reasons that I moved back to Lethbridge to get ready for 2020, is that that's where I was for 2016. And Peter, the coach here, and I have a really good relationship, coach athlete relationship, and it just works. And the practices and the way that he delivers them, just I can absorb them and understand. And then his like keen eye for detail really helps me, because then when I ask questions, he always has an answer that is helpful. And so it's just really working on the small things to work towards the big things. But even when I moved back here, I had been training here for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then we went to summer nationals, and I was like, yeah, like I was so ready to go, and I was like, I can't wait to get a good result. I've been training really hard. I'm in a good place. I'm back with my family. I'm back in Lethbridge. And I got to nationals and still didn't swim well. And then there's other races that I've gone to, and I'll be like, oh, like I don't really want to do this, and like blah blah blah, and then also I'm great. And
Yeah.
so it's honestly like there's, like I say, there's so many things that go into it that it's almost hard to kind of pinpoint like this is the recipe for an amazing swim. But yeah, going into like coming up to this year, I think like things were going super well, and I feel like I had a really good mix, and things were going really, we had a really good training camp. I had lots of really good training under my belt. My stroke felt really good. It was sort of like the feeling, like I don't know how to describe it with breaststroke. Like it's just you have an idea of, even when you're not swimming it, of what it should feel like. And I had definitely lost that feeling because I hadn't swum good sets, or I hadn't been swimming and training very well, and so I just had kind of lost that feeling. So I think just, yeah, having the good training, knowing that you've done harder sets than the race that you're going to swim is really helpful. And that's what you train for. Like this is, that going out, this is how it's going to feel, and then coming back, these are the three key things you have to think about, or whatever. And just having confidence in like a grounded belief that the things that you have done have prepared you for this moment. And that is true with like physical, mental, all the other components, that spiritual, I guess, like all the things that like kind of go into that. And so it's just practicing day by day by day by day, hour by hour, making sure everything in your day is like sort of geared towards making you happy, healthy, feeling good, ready to race, I guess, is the long answer to that.
So it sounds that you're very process oriented, very journey oriented, as opposed to like outcome. Like you mentioned that, the goal was never like make the Olympics, but you were day by day, month by month, set by set, and you achieved that level, right? I'm interested, do you use that sort of those same sort of principles when you're at a long event like the Olympic Games? Because I think a lot of people don't really have a great understanding of just how difficult it is to perform multiple times at the Olympics over such a spread out time period, right? So do you sort of use that process oriented thing, like day by day, to make sure that you're in peak physical and mental condition when you're there? So could you touch on what that sort of looks like?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. So the Olympics was 8 days long, and the 100 breaststroke was prelims and semifinals were on, I think, day 2, and then finals was day 3, and then the relay wasn't until day 8.
Yeah, it's a long break.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so, for me, it was just, like, I can only speak about my experience and I only had the 100 breaststroke and the relay, whereas other people had 4 or 5 events that they had to really like get all their ducks in a row and figure that out. So really, I was kind of lucky because I only had the one kind of 2 events that I had to worry about. But yeah, so it was definitely just one swim at a time, absolutely. And I had no expectations of making the final at all. I was going in 15th, and so I was just like, hey, like, you're on the bubble. I feel like you could probably, make a semifinal. Like, that's a realistic thing. And so I was like, just try to make the semifinal and get a good swim in. And so that first race was definitely the one I was the most nervous for, because I hadn't, like, you don't know. Like I say, like, you can be as prepared as you want to be, but at the Olympics, people psych themselves out all the time. And people, like, I got 5th in the final, but the 3 girls that I beat always beat me. Like, I had never beaten them in my entire life. And so it was like, the Olympics is just such a unique thing, even compared to worlds and things like that, because it's more about racing than it is about who's going to go the world record and best time and stuff like that. It's like people, the change and like shift of who does well and who doesn't is unbelievable. So truly, like, anything can happen. And yeah, so that first race I was super nervous for, because it was just the first one and it could be my only one. Like, if I didn't do well, then I could not be on the relay. I wouldn't get a semifinal, I wouldn't get a final. And so that was the most nerve-wracking one. And then once I did that and got into the semifinal, that one was, again, just like, I won a best time in the prelim, and then in the semifinal I was like, well, I won a best time, like, that's really cool, and I got to where I wanted to be in the semifinal, and so that's awesome. And it was very almost chill at that point, because I was like, this is cool, like, just enjoy the experience. Going fast is just kind of icing on the cake at this point. And just really, like, absorb, like, the walkout and the music and like what's going on, and like take more of it in and enjoy it. And so we did that, and then just like by happenstance I managed to squeak into 8th. And it was funny because we were in the ready room and I was in the second heat of semifinals, and I didn't see what the first heat had gone. And so they just swam, and they have a TV in there, but I think where I was positioned, I just couldn't see it. And so I wasn't sure. I just went in blindly with like not knowing what the other heat had went. And then I think I touched 5th in my heat, and I was like, well, that's probably it. Like, there's no way that the people in the heat before me, that there was only 3 of them that went faster than me. And I was like, you know what, that's cool. Like, I'm happy with that. I came here, I got 2 best times at that point. Like, there's nothing else I could have done. And then it scrolled through, and then I was at the bottom. Oh, wow. So that was cool. And then going into finals, it was just like, I was just on cloud 9. Like, it was amazing. And the pressure for me at that point was like completely off, because I was last, and like there's nowhere to go but up. And like at that point, I had already gotten 2 best times, and so it was just like, you know what, I didn't even think I was supposed to be here, so this is pretty sweet. So definitely it got just race by race and taking that in. And then because of how I swam with that. Then I had the relay, yeah, however later it was. And I remember getting ready for the breaststroke final. And so we did like some prelims in the morning, semifinals at night, and then the next day we had the morning off, and then finals are in the evening. And I remember coming in to swim just to get in and sort of swim out the day that morning. I remember how tired I was, and I was telling Linda, my coach, that I was like, I can't believe how sore and tired I am. And she's like, well, that's why now you have like the whole morning to like relax and get ready, and it'll be okay. And like that's why they structure it this way, so you have some time. And I was like, you're right, you're right, Linda. And so I just like relaxed and like hunkered down, just watched some TV and ate some food, took a nap, and so yeah, just taking one thing at a time. And then after that, because of how I swam, I had the relay, and it was just kind of getting back into some training, honestly, because it was a few days, and I think it was 4 or 5 days, and watching how everybody else was doing was awesome. And so you just get like excitement, and you're like, hey, like let's go. And you kind of get impatient about it. And so but yeah, again, just taking it day by day. Peter was still in Lethbridge, so I would call him or text him or whatever and talk to him about what we were going to do that day. And same with Linda, we would all kind of talk and converse about what we wanted to do and what we wanted the next few days to look like. Took it day by day and just did what I felt was right. And yeah, and then did the relay, and then everybody got sick the day after, so that was great too.
Well, it's a good time. Well, I mean, just the toll that would take on the body, yeah, it makes sense. Once the adrenaline kind of comes down, everyone kind of crashes. So you had mentioned, you touched on it briefly about where you moved back, but I wanted to focus now on you've been through, what was supposed to be a 4-year Olympic cycle here, right?
Right.
So how did the approach compare, or did it differ from your approach to the years and months leading up to Rio? When we look at what was supposed to be this summer, did anything sort of change, or anything was similar?
They were like apples and oranges. It was completely different. It was the weirdest thing, because it was like, it'll be the same, right? But and I thought, again, like after Rio happened, I was like, yeah, success, like things are gonna be smooth sailing from now on, and they definitely weren't. And so yeah, like going into 2016 again, I didn't think that I would be going to Rio until the year before, so I was just living my student athlete life in Texas. And the timing of my degree and when I graduated just worked out really nicely for that. And so every summer I would come back and train with Peter in Lethbridge. And that was a really good mix, because then I'd get lots of really good like technical input, and then I could put that into my swimming and think about it when I was at SMU. And SMU's more a lot more volume than I'm used to swimming, especially now. They swim 10 times a week and lots of this, and so it was good at that time though, because then I got a lot of good sort of foundation, and then was able to get those technical aspects with Peter. So it was really good back and forth. And then I graduated in 4.5 years, and so I graduated in December of 2015 and moved back to Canada in like January 2016, and then just got ready for the Olympics, like that Olympic trials anyways at that point, and was just like, that's all I was doing. And it was really nice because I was done school, and so it's like freedom. And that was really, really great. And it was like, looking back at it, it's hard to remember, because I know that there was times like these where things were really hard and really difficult, and there was ups and downs, and I know that, but it's hard because everything went so well that it's hard to remember those times. But I think that, yeah, there definitely was some difficult things. Swimming at SMU was really hard. Like, it was a challenge, and as it is with balancing school and swimming and all of that. And then once 2016 happened, I guess, then I didn't actually know that I was going to swim for another 4 years, because I thought, man, you're going to be like 27 at that point in time. Maybe you should start working or something. And so anyways, and so I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I spent the year in Lethbridge after that. And then I decided to continue my education and then move to Calgary for the master's program in kinesiology there at U of C, and to work with Michael and Dell in Calgary. And things were going really, really well. And then I don't know, my shoulder started, I don't actually know when my labrum tore, but my shoulder started hurting in like February 2018, and never really got better after that. And so it was so hard, and it was rough, and I didn't know what was wrong. And then we had Commonwealth Games and Pan Pacs, like I say, and they just went awful. And then being away from my family and living in Calgary, like I had lived in Dallas, and I was like, living in a big city will be fine and no problem. But it ended up being like just not a really great place for me to live. I don't really know exactly why, but I just didn't really like living in Calgary. And so I didn't start thinking about moving back to Lethbridge until I went to a breaststroke training camp in January and was talking to Martin there about swimming, and he was like, have you maybe thought about, like, and we were getting ready for the 2020 year, he was like, have you maybe thought about putting your degree on hold and moving back to Lethbridge? And I was like, oh, I had never thought about that. And so that sort of got the wheels turning and everything moving towards like thinking about coming back to Lethbridge, and then I ultimately decided to do that. So I would say that it really wasn't as smooth of a 4 years. And like when I thought that maybe I would retire after 2018 because in 2016, because then I could do, if I made the Commonwealth team and the Pan Pac team, then that would be like all the national teams that you could possibly make, I would have done. And that was a goal of mine. And so, but then once that happened, obviously they didn't go well because I didn't swim very good. And so it was just like kind of unfinished business, and I didn't want to end on a sour note, and so here we are. And it was very, very, very different. I don't even know how, like, if there are any things that I could say that are similar. It was hard. And there was lots of moving parts, like and deciding to just keep going. And I didn't think that I would honestly be here, but I am. And so, yeah. And then the pandemic happened, so that was completely different too. So, yeah, I would say it was a little less smooth, but it's hard for me to remember considering everything went well. But yeah.
So now talking like now about the pandemic, how has that affected you, kind of training for Tokyo, and like has it affected the way you've been training, what you going on in the future training wise now?
Yeah, like I was going to retire, and I was really kind of looking forward to that. Swimming is so hard, and you know that. Like, it's such a hard sport, and all the work that it takes to get going to that. And for me, it's like a minute and a bit, and it's just, and it's so much work. And so, so I was gonna just do trials and see what happened, and depending on that, I would at some point in time retire in the near future. But now that, obviously, for me, like, I'm fortunate because I have like this situation and circumstances that I can continue to train for another year, whereas with other people that's not the case, which is quite sad. And so there wasn't really much of any doubt in my mind that I really wouldn't continue to go on for another year with this, because I was like, why not, and I'm sure that I would look back at that and feel regret, and I am putting my degree on hold at this point, but because I still haven't finished it yet. But school will always be there. I'll go back, I'll do it, and we'll get it done. But this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so, yeah, right now we're obviously the pools are open, but we're doing sort of online Zoom classes with the club that I swim with, and so that's good every day to kind of check in with them, and just trying, not to freak out about not being in a pool for that long, because this is sort of the longest time that I will have been out of the water, and I think the longest break I've ever taken is 6 or 7 weeks, and I would imagine that this is going to go on longer than 6 or 7 weeks. So yeah, just trying to keep things chill, and like we're doing all that we kind of can at this point, and it's good because you can work on things that aren't maybe your strongest points. And for me, like my shoulders and getting those, I can still work on those for sure. And so yeah, we're just it definitely changed the course of my life, I guess, not to sound too dramatic, but yeah, it tacks on another year of swimming that I didn't anticipate. Yeah.
I find the sort of resilience and perseverance that you've shown, like it really is, like it's inspirational, especially when you mentioned like I didn't want, you didn't really want to necessarily keep swimming when you were a lot younger in your teenage years if you didn't like it as much, and now here you are a decade later, still representing Canada, representing yourself, and being very, process oriented. I think these are like important messages for, young athletes or even people that are your age as well to hear. So I wanted to sort of plug your YouTube channel because you on Lane 4 Productions, that's correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so quickly, just before we wrap up and before we go, everyone, I want y'all to take a look at Rachel's Lane 4 Productions YouTube channel, because she's spreading these messages and talking about, her lifestyle. Swimming, it's not a sport. Everyone knows it's a lifestyle. It's very consuming. So to get that better understanding, and then to hear messages from someone like you who's really been through it all there, right? So I wanted to sort of end on
it goes fast.
Yeah. So Felipe, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, if you had like kind of young swimmers in front of you, what would you tell them as inspiration for them to keep going?
I would say, for me, swimming, even when it was hard, the teammates and the friendships that I made were what kept me going. Like that and there's nothing else like it. Yeah, like like you'll never put yourself really in another situation where you're working so hard and you see each other at their most like bare, raw, vulnerable selves, And so when I was like a teenager, definitely the people that I had in the lane beside me made such a big difference. And when I was at SMU and things were really hard and you get kind of stuck in the trenches of all these meters, the friends that I had there too, and they're lifelong friends. And so I would just say, like, I know swimming, it's like very, performance and sports and aggressive, but like also like on the softer side, it's really important to know that you're making friendships, and like I said, things go by super, super fast, and having somebody there and you'll know them for 10 or 20 years and you'll be like, wow, like I didn't even think, and we met when we were like 14 or whatever. And so it's pretty cool for that, like that's what kept me going. It's just being able to meet all these cool people, come with like all these skills, and working on communication and stuff has led to the person that I am today, and being able to manage a lot of things. And so yeah, like sticking with swimming turns you into a really cool person in the end, for sure. And coming up, like you'll meet people that you never would have ever met in your entire life otherwise. So yeah.
So Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story. Best of luck with your training and your preparation, even through this pandemic. And we're really looking forward to seeing you in action once we're through this, and then moving forward next year. And getting ready for 2021 now, the year that we didn't think would happen there. So that's very exciting.
Exactly. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, you guys, and enjoy your retirement. Well deserved.
Thank you. That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, Felipe?
We'll for sure watch you at trials for sure next year.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Take a Look. We'll be looking forward to getting another one out for you soon. Thanks, guys.